Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Ether Amarra. So I'm going to be doing another short book review. The book that I have here on my screen share is going to be a book that I have shared here on my channel within one of my posts. I had found this book in a Second and Charles Books A Million establishment, and I wasn't able to pick it up at the time that I found it, but I did take a picture of it, and I've been wanting to do a review for it once I can actually get my hands on a copy. So I did find a review, kind of a preview of this book, and I just wanted to go over a couple of things in there that stuck out for me and were really interesting when looking into the world of psychotherapy with African American women, how there are lots of inequalities and disparities when it comes to the care that African American women are not getting in psychotherapy and therapist settings, and just kind of a brief look into the understanding of our experiences. So this is the book here, and this is a preview. As I stated before, this is Psychotherapy with African American Women, Innovations in Psychodynamic Perspectives and Practice. And this is by Leslie C. Jackson and Beverly Green. So you'll see here, they have gone through and they've added a couple of pages that can be previewed. As I stated, I definitely want to get my hands on an actual physical copy, the one that I had found. As I stated in the beginning, I did not end up purchasing at the time. However, I wish I would have, because this is definitely a really good read. So I'm just going to read here the chapter 1 page. It states here, the new multiculturalism and psychodynamic theory, psychodynamic psychotherapy, and African American women. So what this states here is this book explores doing psychodynamic therapy with African American women. And we hope that our readers will develop a broader understanding of what is both useful and problematic when applying psychodynamic theories to their African American female clients. So this is basically just stating what this book was created for, how it was created to really give a look into the world of psychotherapy, especially if you're someone who is going into the therapy kind of world, seeking some type of mentorship and not being given any opportunity to speak to someone who looks like you, who understands your experiences, and who knows how to speak to you and understands where you're coming from. So this is definitely something that is very interesting for me. So one part that stuck out for me here is that it will talk a lot about the historical legacy and coping. So it will talk about historically through slavery, how Black women were treated, and how we were expected to be these strong individuals, non-human expectations, how racism played a huge role, how sexual assaults and stereotypes, self-image, and all of those things played into the care dynamic when it comes to being in those settings. So there's one part here that I'm going to read. And let me go back here. So I'm going to read the stereotyping part here. It definitely gives you an idea of how stereotypes can really ruin the therapy setting for African American women, with people who do not otherwise try to get to know you outside of what society tells them that we are, and how detrimental that can be for our mental health. So it states here, African American women are still perceived as sexually permissive and readily available. Two stereotypes perpetuated by white American society and internalized by some African Americans. These stereotypes were fashioned during slavery to rationalize the sexual exploitation of African American female slaves by their white masters. Today we clearly see the institutionalization of this image of sexual permissiveness in movie and television portrayals of African American women. Our society, a personal experience. Or, excuse me, let me go back here. Expectation. Our society has therefore internalized these images. Wyatt, 1997, illustrated this by sharing a personal experience. She stood in a hotel lobby waiting for her husband and children, dressed to attend a wedding. Two young white men came out of the hotel bar and headed my way. When they got within earshot, one loudly exclaimed she must cost at least $100. This experience left her shaken, angry, hurt, and humiliated. Hers was not an isolated experience. The price African American women pay for any such experience is far too high. My own experience as a clinician and supervisor has left me appalled at the number of psychological evaluations I have read where psychologists have documented client histories of sexual trauma and rape, but this information has been ignored in the formulation of diagnoses and treatment plans. Perhaps the general psychology community believes that African American women are neither traumatized nor affected by these events. So I think it's very important to understand, especially if you're someone who calls yourself an ally to Black women and the Black experience. I think it's really important to understand the stereotyping model that is used in the therapy setting that is really detrimental for us and our daughters and, our children, because we are automatically, seen to be, like it states here, these sexually permissive individuals who may not care much about how other people treat us. We must, be okay with the unwanted advances and all of these things that we deal with in our society. And I feel like for anyone who is, said to be an ally to us, I think they should understand that this is not a one shoe fits all type of situation that you can just justify the cause for. You have to really look into the history of how Black women are, hypersexualized in general from all aspects of society, and understanding that feminism is not created for all women because Black women are excluded exclusively in this area of psychotherapy. And I feel like it's very important to be informed and to teach and help other people learn and understand that, as I stated in one of my other videos here on YouTube about the off-base assumptions that people have about Black women and that sexual permissiveness, and how, you can be dealing with the situation where there are unwanted sexual advances and, people expect you to just submit to them, or, there must be something that, you're exuding that is making, people act the way that they are, or everything that you do, there's some reason for it. And I feel like that is always the excuse that Black women get when it comes to reaching out and trying to find, sistership or allyship in someone maybe outside of your race who doesn't truly understand the inside dynamics of this kind of psychological abuse. However, I feel like this is a really good book, and I definitely would recommend, for any of my sisters out there who are on the daily dealing with this sexual permissive, kind of violent behavior from, whether it be men or women. I don't think that there's any, one gender that deals with this issue. It can definitely come from wherever, abuse is abuse, no matter if it's coming from a male or a female. I feel like, if, there are any sisters out there who are, kind of tired of dealing with what society has thrown your way, this is definitely a really good book to take a look at and to understand, how we can protect our daughters and educate our families on how to protect ourselves from sexual permissiveness and, unwanted advances when we are, living and working out here in these spaces, and how to grow through these experiences and, become an exemplary woman. Yeah, that's what I wanted to share here. I feel like it's a lot of really good information. And for anyone who enjoyed this video, please give it 2 thumbs up. Share it with, any fellow sisters that that are dealing with these kind of disparities that many of us are dealing with, and how we can help each other, alleviate these stressors. Thank you so much for watching.